Hello, all. How are you all? You okay?
Evening.
Good.
Good.
Evening.
Good. My name's Martin Allen from Lincolnshire Spirit Seekers. Um, we've been away for about a year because of like different reasons and stuff, and we've come back. We're starting to do lives again. I've got my right hand man, the right of me. That's quite peculiar. Bob Sapp, paranormal investigator, and below me is a good friend of mine, and Darren Dykhouse from Lakeshore Paranormal, Savage Rope. And then we've got a special guest tonight, Russell Reynolds. If each one of you could like just say who you are, and then we can go with that. We start with you, Bob, and then we'll go down to Darren and then Russell.
Okay, if you like. Yeah. All right. Evening. My name's Bob Sharp. Long time since I've done this, so I'm a bit off kilter, as we call it. Like to call myself paranormal investigator. Not always sure what that means. Usually it means when something goes bump in the night, somebody's around to investigate, and it's usually me, Martin, the rest of the team. Been interested in it for years, been around this kind of stuff and sort of UFOs and the rest of it and that most of my life. It's like a lot of things, I think, in this sort of genre. There's no qualifications, it's just the experience.
Darren?
Yeah. My name's Darren. I run a YouTube channel, Lakeshore Paranormal, and I'm from Michigan. And I base a lot of my locations right here in the surrounding areas and just check out a lot of different cases. So post a lot of everything on my YouTube channel.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Russell?
I'm Russell Reynolds. I'm the founder of Beyond Life Paranormal Research Missouri. I'm also the team lead for Cold Spotters Missouri, which is a world-renowned investigative group out of British Columbia, Canada. They have teams all over the United States as well as international. I've been investigating the paranormal for 31 years now. I was mentored by Rob Dermares from Ghost Hunters International. And it's a funny story how I met Rob. I used to be a DJ back when I was younger, and Rob had reached out to me, knew I wanted to get started in the paranormal field for the group. He was like, "Hey, I'm still with GHI. Can you make me a mixtape so I can listen to go overseas?" I was like, "Sure." And he says, "In token, I'll get you started with a group." And he got me in contact with Florida Ghost Team that he was the assistant director of. And then it went on in there. But my paranormal journey started at the young age of 6. And I saw my first apparition at 3 o'clock in the morning at my bedroom door. We had.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Because about 3 o'clock in the morning, between 3 and 5 tends to be the time where spirits can more interact with you as well.
Yep.
So I totally understand that.
If you follow my cousin Ed Warren's logic, the witching hour is not exactly 3 a.m. It starts from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And your 3 a.m. is more of your hour of the demonic, where your darker stuff comes out is more at like 3 a.m.
Okay.
And so I seen this soldier at 6 years old. I heard a noise, and it woke me up. And I looked, and it was standing there in the doorway. It was probably maybe over 5 feet tall. And I put the blankets over my head like that, kind of that scared kid. It's not real. It's going to go away. Got the curiosity, peeked up over the blankets, and it was gone. But strange things would happen in that house, even to my parents. My dad would wake up in the middle of the night, it'd be freezing cold in there, go downstairs, and the heat's turned down. And he thought it was us kids, but us kids were too little to even play with it. Me being at 6 years old, my sister was only 4. And my mom's stuff on her shelves would be moved. And again, we couldn't reach her shelves to move anything. Water would turn on at night. Toilets would flush at night. Lights would flicker on and off at night. I can remember we went to my grandmother's house for dinner, and my dad come home from work, and he was home and take a shower, and get to my grandmother's. He calls up my grandmother's house, and the upstairs bathroom was flooded. Something had turned the tub on, the tub ran over.
So do you, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Do you feel like, because you are related to Ed and Lorraine as well, do you feel like you get a lot of interactions? Do you think that might be in the gene sort of thing, or do you think?
It could be. I mean, we didn't find out till a few years ago that we were related to the Warrens and Zappases. So it's not like I knew my whole life that I was related to them, but I have a feeling Lorraine knew because I've been friends with Lorraine on Facebook since 2006. She just didn't add anybody unless she knew you. So I think with her clairvoyant, she knew that I was relative to her somehow. But most of the stuff is like with Rob mentoring me, and then most of the stuff I did on my own. And it was more of a calling for me because I wanted to help people that couldn't explain what I couldn't explain.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
understand that.
back in the day, we would wake up in the morning and the car would be started. And that was before auto start. So my parents went out one morning about 6 in the morning and the car's running.
It's like we've been on investigation. Oh, sorry, Darren, you was just going to say something.
Oh no, that I was just saying that's pretty interesting story.
Yeah. Have any of you two had that sort of experience with your cars? I know that Bob's been like experienced stuff with the cars before when we've been out on an investigation.
Yeah, them sensors that you get on your front of your car. Well, I haven't got them on mine, but your cameras now, don't you? And you get your sensors that that tell you can't go any further or to stop, whatever. My old car had them, and we was doing an investigation at a place, and we was leaving. I turned round. I mean, I know how I parked my old car. I parked it off enough times. I know how the sensors work. Sensors started going off at the front. Nothing in front of us, except some like long grass, which I've never known set it off. I've parked up in plenty of places and visited, locations in the middle of nowhere and stuff. But you would have to be within about 3 or 4 feet, and yeah, it just kept going off, and then we just sat looking at each other, didn't we? And then they went off again. They went off again. I got out to check them just to test them, and this, how you do. You go into, well, I go into scientific mode. I mean, we'll all be the same. Immediately something happens, you're like, boom. But then you have to think, after years of understanding it, you have to think, right, no, you've got to do it, debunk it first. Don't get too excited. I couldn't debunk that. I've never had that. I've got a different car now, but I've never had it since. And I've been back there and never had it since neither. It just was really odd. The people, as if something was passing in front of backwards and forwards in front of the car. So, yeah.
What are you, David?
I had something really strange happen to me when I was leaving an investigation at the Nunica Cemetery, local cemetery here that is notoriously haunted. It was even featured on a lot of news. And
yeah, because you was in the news as well.
What's that?
Did you been in the news with the investigations and stuff that you've done before?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. And we actually went there and we had our own experiences. The news people had their own experiences. The memory card actually got wiped out, and then we actually had to go to another cemetery and film the rest of it the next day.
I've got a funny feeling I've seen that on YouTube.
Yeah.
Did you put the clips on your channel, Darren?
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah.
I've seen it somewhere. To watch a lot of paranormal stuff and sit there and go, well, that's just somebody running about. But yeah, they had loads of stuff go wrong, didn't they? And they started. They
did, and that just really. Yeah, it was,
they turn up, a lot of the time they turn up and they're very skeptical, and then when stuff goes wrong and you can see the faces going, I've not had this before. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just proves something's going on there. So
that's it.
Oh yeah.
Also, when you did anything like inspire you to become an investigator or anything? Like you said, like want to help. It's like with us with L.S.S. and Darren himself, we've always helped people.
Yep.
And like me and Bob, we come from the care industry, so like caring for people, be there for people, tends to be in our genes sort of thing.
Yep.
And I was wondering, is there something that inspired you to become the investigator that you are today?
Well, it was mainly, like I said, to help people, especially as like me being a kid that experienced that. Kids that go through this stuff and parents don't believe them. I wanted to help inspire them kids too that they don't need to be afraid to speak out that it is real and
Yeah.
for me to go into people's houses and kids for us take first priority on any investigation
Always, yeah.
that we
Yeah.
get called on. We'll drop something to go help a child before we'll do a regular case that doesn't involve a child.
Is there anything that you put first when you do it, so when you do your investigations? Um,
Uh, my team safety. We do a lot of background checks on clients, and we're checking what kind of medications they're on. We're also checking if they got a history of violence, drugs, so we know what we're walking into. I
Mental
always
health.
present no weapons in the house, no drugs or alcohol for the 48 hours of us being there. Otherwise, we are not coming out because I will not put my team's safety at risk with that.
so how many do you
Yeah.
have in your team?
There, right now, there's three of us. There's myself, my dad, and my lead investigator, Jen. We kind
Okay,
of
what
just
about you, Darren? Have you got more people in the team, or how do you do it now?
uh, we just stick to the smaller type of team. If we get like a bigger location, we'll call in like our cold spotters teams for backup.
That's cool. What about you, Darren? You're talking about your investigations. Do you still go out with your partner, or do you have a bigger team now? How?
Most of the time it's just me. I do everything from just investigating locations. Sometimes I'll team up with another team, but yeah, sometimes my fiance will go with me, but otherwise, yeah, lately I've been running small group. I just feel like I myself as an empath can connect to spirit better with no one around, and I kind of get
Less.
into a meditative state
Yeah. Less
and do
noise. Yeah.
so yeah, I channel spirits more than anything, than more or less investigate.
Let's go. It's like with our team, we've got a few, haven't we, Bob?
Yeah.
There's another psychic that works with us, a partner. We've got a trainee psychic and a photo videographer. So we can get these solid evidence and stuff like that. When it comes to evidence, what do you all account as like this is evidence? This is what we've got, instead of like what when you like debunk, like what's the best results that you've had left over before?
Well, for me, I always go by, like, if I'm doing like a spirit box session or something, I always try to look for credible responses to the questions I've asked. Um, I still have my doubts and suspicions. We get a lot of radio interference too, so it
Yeah.
just takes a really good ear. I um like a lot of there's always a lot of light pollution in filming, so I mean lenses aren't like our naked eye, so um
Mm.
I get try to debunk lens flares. I don't go after orbs or anything like that, but you know um but yeah,
See.
I usually go by, like, if I'm doing a case, I usually go with my psychic medium friend, older lady, goes by the name of Margaret, but she's incredible. But we usually go by what the clients or people we are helping, the experiences that they are going through. We keep a good ear out and listening to every little detail, and sometimes we ourselves never really get the full experience of what people are dealing with, living there on a day-to-day
Only in
basis.
there for a short amount of time, compared to somebody that's lived in that building for X amount of years.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's very rare for me to get anything definitive on camera. So most of the time I'm just going after EVPs.
And what about you, Russell?
For me, it's the video evidence, your EVPs. We get a lot of responses. We do a lot of Estes methods, which we use a lot of Supernatural Links equipment. KD Stafford, we use his reverse sweep ink box. So everything is swept in reverse. So every conversation that you hear radio, if it's radio coming through, it's all in reverse. So if you're getting a forward sentence through it, then you've got definitive proof you are actually
Not using the spirit box then, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it also runs on shortwave, so you're cutting out a lot of that radio static and frequency.
Yeah. Especially, we have that over here. We have a lot of. I think if we're around where me and Martin lives, we live not far from each other, and some of the area that we're in, I notice a lot more chatter, extraneous chatter, I suppose you'd call it, than other stuff. And you think to yourself, I don't know when there's other people with you and they're looking at you going, well, isn't that something? And you're like, because you've heard it so many times, and you kind of learn. It's hard to explain. You learn to kind of understand what you're looking for and what you're not. So anybody that's sort of new to it, are looking dead excited, and you're like, yeah, that's just half a radio advert or something. And I've heard the strangest things come out. We was at I'd done a bit of it was something with a young lady, and we was outside of a big place here, Thornton Abbey, and I'd had a couple of bits, and it was very, very odd. And then it just burst really loud, and it was an advert for chocolate. You could only hear about 2 or 3 seconds.
Like
yeah, well, unless the ghost after a bit of chocolate, that's not nothing. But it did lighten the spirit, so to speak. Yeah, if you like. But yeah, so you have to be careful, don't you? You've got to be careful of what you're getting, all the rest of it.
Oh, it's like about debunking, and then it's like how you always say, always debunk what you can. Then what's left over, that's obviously paranormal.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Instead of jumping in and going, oh my God, there was a bang. That's paranormal, that one. I can't just knock the bottle off the roof, off this side. You know what I mean? Debunking it all the time. Working within the paranormal field, we always get skepticism. And I was just wondering, how do you all deal with it? Because me, myself, with skeptics, I always have to go, I tell you what, I know you're a skeptic, and that's totally fine. Come with us. Come with us an investigation. Come and see what we're about. See how we work. And I was just wondering, is there anything that you lot do that, deals with skepticism, and how do you approach the situation if it arises?
For like me, I'd take them with me. Like we did Waverly Hills Sanatorium, and we got invited by another team, and there was a skeptic there, and we were doing a spirit box session on the first floor, all sitting at a round table. So we were letting him ask the questions. While we were getting intelligent response, he was getting cussed at. It called him a dumb bitch, and it called him pretty much every name in the book. And I was like, how can you explain that? Because if that's radio, you're not going to get cussing through a radio station because they don't allow it. And right then, all the meters on the table just started going in sync with each other, right around the whole table.
That's pretty cool.
And then he finally quit asking questions. Another lady asked questions, and it called her a dumb bitch.
Okay.
And then when it finally got to me, they asked, "You like Russell?" No, he's an asshole.
Did you feel like that was? Is that because that you feel like they didn't want to communicate with you, or do you feel?
Well, with me, it was kind of like a running joke on my team because when we do residential, we're there to do a job. We're there strict to the point, and a lot of those spirits don't like that when you're questioning direct to the point because you're kind of putting a little bit of pressure on them. So I would get called an asshole in pretty much every investigation we've done. So it was kind of like a laughing experience, a running joke, and the other team was trying to figure out what it was. My team members were like, "Oh, he gets called that all the time. That's just a running joke in our team that there's not an investigation he doesn't get."
I was going to ask, have you over the years, how would you describe it? Because sometimes on occasion would listen to stuff and look at stuff, and like you'll know, like trying to research stuff, so you're sort of like correlating things, and I think sometimes when you go over stuff, it's the things that you don't notice, and you go, hang on a minute, but we've had that there, and we've had that there, and there's like a correlation of evidence. And sometimes I do know of watching other podcasts and stuff, where the people have been sort of followed, where they realise, oh, hang on a minute, someone's just followed me from here to here to here. It makes for an interesting concept that spirits will move about or do, because obviously the people think of anybody who's open to, and not totally skeptical thinks to themselves about a place being haunted, and I've over the years sort of try to get out the notion that a particular you get locations that are more haunted than others, but I do believe that somebody can walk down the street and they will be just in tune and see something that's happened, and it's just it's like a recording that they've been able to tap into. They'd never see it again. Nobody else would see it and stuff. But then you do get your locations. Cause I've always asked myself about if it was so easy to pick a spot and just go there, it would be dead obvious, wouldn't it? I mean, you'd go to, I was trying to think for us, like in Europe, Flanders Fields, Passchendaele, places like that, where millions died. And this was somebody who said this to me, why can't you go there and automatically get evidence? And to be fair, I did watch a lot of stuff, and there is a lot of people been there and actually got a lot of evidence. So, but yeah, okay. Do you ever go to anywhere and sort of, is there somewhere that's really active and always will be active, such as like the graveyard you mentioned?
Yep, like Missouri State Penitentiary is one of the good examples for that. Yeah. Every time you go there, it's never the same thing. You always experience something different in that prison.
Sorry, go on.
Whether it be cell doors, you hear the residual of cell doors slamming in front of you, or you're getting the vertigo feeling when you go down to 3D, or you actually tap into JB the Firebug, which is one of the hardest spirits there to even communicate with. He doesn't communicate very well. Sometimes you can go there, you won't even catch him on an EVP or tap into him or anything like that.
Wow. So have you ever come across, especially like there, have you ever had the feeling that something knows you, that knows you've returned, rather than just yeah.
It's a good question to ask, that is. Yeah.
We were at an event last summer there at Missouri State Penitentiary with Nestor, which is Ed and Lorraine Warren's team. They had the museum artifacts out there, and we were also with Get Haunted, and it was part of their event, and they split us up into groups, and we went to each section with different team leaders. And when we got down to 3D, we were down there and they were doing the human pendulum.
Yeah, we did do that.
Yeah.
They asked the spirit down there, because she was messing with the dowsing rod, so they asked her if there was somebody that she wanted to talk to, and the person went forward for yes, and he asked everybody their name, and I was the first one that got mentioned because I was standing next to him, and she wanted to talk to me. She had remembered me from being there the year before.
Wow.
And communicating with her, so she wanted to actually speak with me again.
Okay, what about you, Darren?
What was the question again?
It's like, have you ever been to a location where a spirit tends to remember you?
Well, I mean, I would say
Where
the
you've
Nunica
returned
Cemetery
somewhere,
here,
yeah, you
because
feel like something knows you're there. That's you.
yeah, when I first started ghost investigating and trying to really get into this stuff, I would go there and kind of basically train myself. And a lot of people do that. They go there to train, and believe it or not, it's one of the most haunted locations I've ever been to. And I've been to hospitals and this and that, and um, there's just a lot of tragic history around the town that it's in. It burnt down in the 1920s. It was a big area for trains. There was a big sawmill there, and it was actually about to boom into a bigger city. But then the whole thing caught fire, and on top of that, there was a plague, and then there was when they originally made the cemetery, they would actually bury um, the pioneers of the white folk right over the Native American burial ground. So it's just there's a lot of interesting facts. There was an insane asylum that was built behind there, but they tore it down. It's just a lot of it's definitely a hot spot. And I actually seen a woman in a white dress one time there, like full bodied apparition. I'd never seen anything like that before.
Oh, it's mad.
The strange thing about that experience was I felt like there was actually someone there. Like I was like thinking the first thing that came to my head is why are the people that were drove into the cemetery, because someone had just pulled in to the cemetery up at the front, and I'm thinking, why are they over here standing 10 feet away from me? And then it clicked. I'm like, wait a second. And then just before I realized that she was gone, and she was wearing like a old Victorian dress, but I couldn't make out a face or anything. It just happened so quickly.
So do you? It's like I've done that a few times. I've been to a few locations, and it's like I communicate with spirit, and it's like when I've communicated, it's like it tends to be the same spirit that comes through sometimes, and it's like it's carrying on the conversation, or carrying on informing me with what it wants me to know, and it's like I find that quite strange. It's like, but that's where you have your like intellectual spirits, and you have you know your other spirits and that. So it's like your residual spirits as well. Um, when you go investigating, do you think it's the land that's haunted, or do you think the buildings are haunted? It's like my personal belief. I believe it's the land because layers upon layers of different histories. What are all three of your opinions? We start off with Russell, and then we go back to you, Darren, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, a lot of it's land. If something, maybe there was a house there at one time, or there was a war that went on, or a massacre on the land, that land is going to hold that energy. No matter if you build another house there or what have you, it's going to inhabit that. Even houses, like if you got a former owner that owned that house at one time and he passed away in there, and he's going to come back and check on his property because that's where he was happy. But when you get somebody that, like our residential cases, you get somebody that moves in that house, that spirit looks at you as a trespasser. It's That's why you notice they get aggressive, and a lot of people call them, "Oh, I've got something demonic in my house." A lot of times, it's that regular spirit that is being aggressive because you're in his face. It's like I refer it to as if it was a burglar. What are you going to want to do when a burglar breaks into your house? You're going to want to hurt him to protect your family. Well, that's all that spirit's doing is protecting its house and its property. A lot of times they don't realize they're dead.
Yeah.
They
A lot
still
of people don't ask that question. What do we always go on about, like we're doing now, about how we feel about everything, but what about the intelligent spirits, not the residual ones, but what about the intelligent spirits that you meet? What on earth are they feeling? And I mean, I watch a lot of stuff, and I've not yet come across anybody who's tried to ask certain kind of questions. They're always trying to get, I think, they're trying to look for that sort of golden proof out there and that, and they forget that they're talking to what's technically a human being, might be passed on or whatever, but yeah, and they're probably just as I can't the right word now, inquisitive as we are.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, you get a lot that go in the houses and they go in there and they disrespect the spirit in there and they provoke it,
Yeah.
and then they walk out and they leave the client holding the bag, and then that
Yeah.
client's already scared as it is.
Well, it's
They
like
don't.
you've aggravated, you're going by, you say later, you know what I mean? I don't understand where you're coming from. It's like, and then that house has got kids or it's got an elderly person, whatever. And you got into that house, done an investigation, agitated the spirit there. You know what I mean? It's like imagining going and agitating a grumpy old man, for example.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then leave it. Let the family deal with it then.
Yep.
Yeah. Totally wrong.
And then once it's angry, it's just going to be even worse, and it's going to be a lot stronger. Or you get ones that go in and cleanse a house and they don't do it right, and then whatever goes it lays in dormant, and then once everything clears, then it's on the attack again, and this time it's really mad and angry.
Have you had to deal with any of those sort of situations?
Oh yeah, we've had to go back to locations that other teams have been in because they've up and left the client holding the bag, and we did one where a guy he was under oppression. I've got a video of him. He's sitting there in the chair and sitting there acting like he's typing in the
Okay.
air. And his girlfriend's calling him, calling him, calling him. He won't answer. And then finally, he looks up at her, and his eyes were black. And he goes, shh. And they had a team in there, and the team didn't even last 10 minutes. They ran out the door. Didn't say nothing to the clients, nothing. They just packed up and left.
That's the thing, that you get a lot of people just going out, buying equipment, doing like going, yep, I'm a paranormal investigator. Now I've got the equipment. It's like, hang on a minute. Just because you've got the equipment doesn't mean you're an investigator. You've got to have done it and learn how it is and how to deal with different situations, how to not provoke, have that respect and stuff like that. And, it's like, you do get teams out there that go, yeah, I'm an investigator. And it's like, no, you're not.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they don't take it seriously. And, I mean, you can get hurt doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, like your demonic stuff, it's rare in cases, but it's real. Them things can lay in dormant for years and years until it decides it wants to come out and attack, and it can come home with you. I mean, they know who you are. They know your birth date. They know what car you drive. They know everything about you.
So do you remember when we went out on that investigation and then that lady ended up having to be exercised there and then in the Bradley Woods?
Yeah. Yep.
And then like all the team was affected one way or another because of it.
Yeah, there's that was an eventful evening. That was. But,
it gets rough when you have to deal with something dark like that. I mean, I've seen upside down crosses get scratched into people. I've seen eyes rolling in the back of their head. I've got audio of the demonic coming across the spirit box, laughing, mocking church music, and doing Latin chanting. And I sent it over to clergy to listen to it, and they said destroy it.
Wow.
What about you, Darren?
I've had a lot of incredible experiences, especially with dark entities. Like he was saying, I don't think demons are as common as one would think, especially in cases involving families and stuff. I'm going to reference somebody else's case, but they told me about a guy that was haunting their house, but he was really angry and they thought it was demonic. But at first, eventually he wouldn't really leave. They had a team and tried to cleanse it, but he was pretty stubborn and it was his home before. And I guess apparently he liked toast and coffee. So eventually the people would put out a cup of coffee and a little piece of toast every morning. And
Why not?
things calm down.
People leave carrots and biscuits for
So I guess
Rudolph at Christmas.
they couldn't get rid of it, but learn to live with them.
Pretty cool.
That's a good point, actually. That is, it's a good, very, the number of people that must deal with that, or as I think I've come across just recently, a very low level haunting, whereby I ask the question if somebody at where I work, and the lady asked me some sort of questions, and I went, have you got an issue? And she went, I don't know. And I said, well, does it worry you? And she went, only sometimes when I think, well, hang on a minute, and so-and-so's not in, I suddenly realise that so-and-so's not upstairs or my husband's not in. And I think, and I said, what do you do? And she said, well, I'll go and have a look, and there's usually nothing. I said, if you're not interested, unless it does something really awful, then just ignore it, because it could be something that I think as curious about you as you would be about. But I think a lot of the time it's probably not the best advice unless something really goes wrong. But just ignore it, because you're living in the same space, if you like, as something else that just is, I think, is just quite interesting. And she's not had anything. She also said to me, it's quite seasonal. Around winter, she gets odd little occurrences, little thing, nothing major, nothing big, just a door shut and
you
things,
think that? Sorry for interrupting there. You think that you get more spiritual encounters and stuff like that depending on weather? You think that weather can affect the investigation sort of thing as well? What do you think, Russell?
Yeah, I mean, towards like spring and summer, you're getting a lot of the thunderstorms, which produces a lot of lightning and static electricity, which they can draw from. So more than you do winter. I mean, we'll get an occasional call in the winter, but even for us, it slows down in the winter for us. And then towards spring and summer, it picks back up again and gets busy all the way till October, and then it'll slow down. But yeah, with your lightning and stuff like that, it's sparking that energy up. And then October, your veil's a lot thinner because of the full moons and everything. You're getting them full moons that are sparking that energy and that veil thinning. So you're getting a lot more stuff coming through around that time.
Okay, what about you, Darren? What do you think about that sort of? Do you think that the weather can change what you find, your investigation, changing?
I do. I've gone out to investigate some cemeteries right before a strong storm, or like if it feels like there's something building in the air, just seems to like really give it that charge, or actually after a really strong thunderstorm, it just seems to really amp things up a little, I feel like.
Yeah.
Just recently we were out on a old Native American cemetery, and it was lightning out. I mean, we were right on the verge of getting a strong storm, but we were like, this is perfect, because I mean, we just felt like it was really energized and pretty active. And I agree. I mean, I would have to agree with him that it seems to slow down in the winter, and I've really never fully noticed that, but there's been sometimes right before a winter storm, we get some pretty crazy ones coming off Lake Michigan here, and there's a lot of heaviness in the air, and I've done a lot of personal sessions right in my own home during that little period between a snowstorm and just that heaviness that's in the air that we get. But other than that, yeah, it kind of does slow down in the winter.
What do you think, Bob? What do you think? Because with my experience, it's like these two have said that it dies down, that you get less investigations in the winter. But with my experience, my personal experience, I find it more active in the winter. And the reason is because there's more water. Water is life, helping the spirits, whatever it is, to be able to communicate a lot more. I think the reason why you don't see a lot more during the winter period is because not a lot of people like to go out in the cold. Not a lot of people like to go out and
Well, it's not
you know.
always about going out in the cold, is it? Because during COVID, when everybody was on lockdown, a lot of people, apparently, from what I've discovered or read and looked at this last few years, a lot of people discovered a lot about their own homes during lockdown, things they didn't notice. Because let's face it, if you've got an average job, like I know I have, I leave the house at 7:45 in the morning, come back at 5, and come home, do whatever. And then you pretty much go to bed. But during lockdown, everybody was stuck at home, and I think noticed a lot from what I can, but I've looked at, I've noticed a lot more. But I don't know. Winter's an odd one because it's probably could be down to your location and where you are. Because I mean, if you're in an area where there's a lot's gone on, then maybe you would notice a lot more, and also that time of year, maybe people just don't take that, because a lot of the time, I just think that with spirits, because obviously we always talk about, or people talk about the kind of stuff that's in your face, but like I said before, if it's quite low level and stuff, when you get to that point where that time of year, Christmas, and hopefully everybody's celebrating and this, that, and the other stuff around that area, and some people are just not taking no notice, and so I think that there may be. I do know of. I mean, I worked with a lady who absolutely, if she was here now, would tell you her mum visits. I listened to some interesting recordings, and I've got to admit there's something very questionable. But she's not frightened. She says it's my mum. I know it's my mum. And it doesn't worry me. I just wondered about some kind of validation. But at the end of the day, I said, if you believe that's your mum and you feel safe, then there is no validation. Nobody can tell you nothing. Nobody can walk and tell. Yeah, and that's usually around the Christmas time. I don't actually know if the lady passed away during the Christmas time, but and I've read very similar experiences and stuff. Because a lot of the time, I sometimes wonder if summers, for me, you see the opposite way around, where everybody's out. A lot of people go on holiday extensively and all the rest of it and things, and people maybe don't notice. So I find it the opposite way around as well. But is it location, especially considering where we are compared to where the guys are? Because obviously we're in Europe technically, and you guys are in the Americas. So so it could be another thing, location.
Has there ever been an investigation where it's made you go, hang on a minute, nah, I don't want to do this anymore? That's made you want to step back from it. We'll go to Darren with this one, then we'll go to Russell, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, I actually have an investigation up on my channel. I forget the name, and it's a really old one on there, but I was investigating with a former partner of mine. She was a psychic medium, and she got us into this house where a fellow was getting basically electrocuted. He see shadow people, and just basically felt like he was getting shocked in his bed, and he ended up, it was kind of a rundown house, and it was being remodeled, and he ended up just living somewhere else, so he wasn't really living there anymore, and he was just fed up with the activity. He was putting up with it for 15 years. But he wanted us to go in there and cleanse it, so maybe he could finally finish remodeling it. And we went in, and we already got like heavy, crazy vibes going in the door. And not long after that, we were setting everything up, and we heard a big, giant crash of glass upstairs, and it was one of the bins upstairs had fallen over. And it just was like so loud. And when it happened, we felt the whole house shake. And we knew whatever was here was pretty serious and just dark and not to be messed with. So we didn't even attempt to cleanse because we weren't going to take that risk. So we ended up getting out of there.
What about you, Russell?
For me, I haven't had that yet. I mean, my very first demonic case that I've done that took 6 months to deal with, that was the one with the upside down cross, eyes rolling in the back of the head. I almost got to the point where I actually called a clergy demonologist to come out,
Hmm.
and they actually said, "You can handle it. You're strong enough to do it." And we just stuck with it and kept going back. But this case was actually pretty bad. This person actually wanted to kill family, wanted to kill his husband. Open the closet downstairs. There's a noose hanging in the closet.
Ooh.
And that's when the whole switch just flipped. As soon as I opened that closet door, that client ran upstairs. Daughter goes, "I love you, Mom." He goes like this, runs out the door. Didn't want nothing to do with her family. Husband's one of the nicest guys you want to meet in the world. He's a firefighter and EMT. And he says, "You got to help my wife, my family, my marriage." And I gave him my word we would do that. And she ran outside. We were holding her hands, talking to her, trying to calm her down. And that's when her eyes started rolling in the back of her head,
Ooh.
saying, "It's mine. I don't want it to leave." And then upside down cross appears on the side of her neck. And it was basically it telling us, like, "You better back off, or if I'm going to possess this person, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hurt you guys." And we wanted the client to leave to see if it was the actual house, if it was in the house, or if it was her. And it ended up being in the house because once she left the property, she was fine. And that one kind of got me on edge. I ended up calling the demonologist and was like, "Look, this case might be a little too much for me to handle." And he was like, "No, you got it. I will do some prayers for you, protect you." And we took care of it. And like I said, it took 6 months to get it back to normal. Family goes to church. They invite us over for Thanksgiving dinner. We're like family.
Oh,
And
yeah. What
yeah,
you, Bob? Have you ever had like a spiritual encounter which made you want to stay away, or do you feel like it's more want to make you know more? How do you feel? Because have you
I've always been
like,
inquisitive. I've always been more inquisitive. I mean, I always say this that because obviously I don't know about you guys. I was born and brought up on a. My mum and my dad was worked for a water company and on the land, and my mum was a railway crossing keeper, and so I was born and brought up on a little railway crossing in the middle of nowhere. So from the age sort of go, I was used to being out in the middle of nowhere, the wilderness, all the rest of it. And so the night, as it predominantly things happen, is I've never been scared. So I don't know if that's a bad thing or not because I've not got a lot of bravado. I'm the sort of I'll wander off watermine, which is a bit naughty sometimes. Something will take me and I'll think to myself, and then I realise I shall wander too far. Paranormal wise, I've not. I mean, you know about knows about the UFO encounter they had that sort of was that close that I've never questioned whether there's something odd that visits us. It's a different thing. But yeah, no, not really. Even when things have got like at RAF Kermington, when things got a little bit crazy, I felt just to step back, and so just to survey the area and things. I think the one thing that caught me out just a little bit that was a little bit odd was the night, and I thought Wendy's husband was next to me, and he was the other side of Wendy, and you was over there, and I thought no, somebody was stood next to me, and I know somebody was stood next to me, and for a second I thought, and then I thought, okay, then something was interested in me, which is nice. So yeah, not really. I think I've been quite lucky. We've sort of not come across the demonic more. I don't like using the word demonic. The more powerful spirit things. Yeah, I mean we've come across some things that want to talk, haven't we, mine? And like the the guy that had died in the plane when the plane had come down in the Humber and stuff, and he obviously drowned, and as the plane was burning and he drowned, and he really, really, really wanted us to know that he was there. From the moment was getting, your feet was getting wet. We're stood in the middle of the forest. Martin's feet's getting wet, and he's going, I'm getting wet, and then I'm drowning, I can't breathe, and you know, there's the moment that I think I'm thinking, wow, this is. But
I always say, don't tell me about anything. I never want to know where I'm going because I don't want my team to me.
Yeah.
What was you going to say, Bob?
Pardon?
What was you just about to say then?
No, I was about to say to the guys, actually, it's one of those. Do you worry sometimes that on repeat visits to places that because you know about something that do you worry it can skew your feelings about something that comes through or something you get or something do you think, well, hang on a minute, I know what this is going to be and that, and you kind of preempt stuff, and you obviously you shouldn't, but do you guys ever have anything like that, where you think, it feels like a norm or it feels like a repeat of something, and you think to yourself, well, here we go, and everything's, you have to take everything in a fresh light, don't you? Do you guys ever feel like that at all? Does that make any sense? I'm not sure. I'm not sure I've worded that very well. Do you feel sometimes a bit? You realise you've become a little bit complacent, or are you really good at keeping on the ball with it all? And keeping yourself safe. That's the best way of putting it. Yeah. Do you feel? Yeah. Do you feel that? Either one of you. Sorry.
Whoever. When I first started this, I wasn't very protected, and I learned, from, having my own experiences to be a little more safe during investigation.
Yeah, the usual stuff that people don't really realise, and that how you protect yourself. Are you the same, Russell? Then do you go through a set routine to help you protect yourself and your team and this, that, and the other, and to keep yourself safe? You don't get complacent. You don't think, I've done this.
I stay on task. I close myself off quite a bit to protect myself. So I'm not looking at it where I'm coming into the same location looking at the same thing. I'm looking for other things that may have came back in or stuff like that. I'm not looking for the same thing that I found the first time.
If there's any, because we're just about to come to an end, I was just wondering, is there any sort of advice you would be able to give junior investigators? People are just about to start the journey that we've all lived for many, many years.
Yeah, for us, for the new investigators, go with a team that's experienced, learn. Don't just jump in it head over heels. I've been doing this since 13 years old, so I learned the hard way at a young age. You don't want to jump in it head over heels. Learn from a team, learn how to run. If you want to do your own team, learn how to run your own team. Work with people who do residential, because residential is a lot harder than going to Waverly Hills or Missouri State. Residential, you got a lot of different energies. You're being invited to their home. You never want to ask a client for money. You don't want to ask for food. You're there to help them. They're inviting you in. And you want to learn that respect. Treat them like they were one of your family members. And that's what you learn from a team that's experienced with that. Even if you want to do events, go with a team that's experienced doing events. I mean, because there's so many dangers out there, always have a buddy system. Yeah. Work with somebody long enough that they know if you're going to go do a solo in a room somewhere and they're watching your camera system, they're going to know when something's going on with you. If you're not there physically or psychologically, they can see that on camera and they know that you're not yourself, that they need to pull you out.
And what about you, Darren? Is there any advice that you would like to give to junior investigators?
I would say start small. When I first started, I went out and got all this different equipment and realized that I just needed a couple things, and I started doing smaller investigations. I started with just cemeteries and stuff. So I just would say start small. But also, like he said, there's a lot of teams out there that would gladly, maybe have you tag along. So, I mean, always look for that or events. Sometimes they have events around here where teams are hosting, some ghost hunting. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
All right, well, what about you, Bob? Is there any advice you would like to give to junior investigators?
I think I'd agree. I agree with you guys. Is to keep safe and don't. I think nowadays, and I don't like doing it, but you know very well I'm going to do is don't be put up with the glory of watching these TV shows that are edited for entertainment and make it look glorious, glamorous. Everything happens within 45 minutes. Discounting the adverts was probably an hour. Don't fall for it, because I'm not saying they're lying. I don't mean it like that or anything. It's just that it's not like that. It can be sometimes arduous, endless hours of nothing more than it is anything. And be prepared for the fact that you know a lot of the time you'll come away with you're not really sure what you've got until you go back over your evidence. But and always be open-minded. Be open-minded both ways. Be skeptical. We got to be open-minded. But most of all, just keep safe. You've got to be, especially nowadays.
That's it. It's like us as L.S.S. We've always stood together with, and you as well, Darren, with PARAUNITY, where we support, promote, and encourage each other. That's whether you're on your own or, whether you go out on your own as a team or you go with somebody else. I always have the utmost respect, because just because somebody likes to investigate one way doesn't mean that is the right way. And it doesn't mean that your way is the right way. You know what I mean? Everybody's got their own way of doing different investigations. Always have respect. It's always good to be able to treat each other on that even keel that we all should be. I would just like to say, Darren, thank you very much for jumping in and helping me out tonight.
And no, you're welcome.
Bob Sapp, thank you very much for coming on. And Russell, I'd love to have you on again, because I've still got a lot of questions to ask you.
Yeah, definitely.
So, thank you very much. And I'll speak to you. Thank you.
Okay.